WeRiseNation.com.
This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We about to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud and clear. If you seek it, you will find what you looking for. And once you hear us, it'll leave you looking for some more. Open the door, let us in, we got a special vibe. Now close the door, lock us in, and enjoy the ride. We about to talk about some things that make a lot of sense. And what we talking about, here sometimes will get intense. That's what we looking for, trying to spark a conversation. Join us live or you can listen on the We Rise Nation. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We about to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise.
Welcome back to another edition of the Grown Men Podcast. I am your host, BAN, and welcome back into the show. Well, everybody knows it came up. It is the 100th episode of the Grown Men Podcast, building blocks, as we've been on this journey since 2004, October 7th, 2004 to be exact. And hey, we're keeping it moving, but we're still in that state of building. And joining me, of course, this week is my brother, the Mark. Mark, it's good to have you on the 100th episode of the Grown Men Podcast.
It's definitely been good to be a part of the journey as we keep moving on to, try to put the word out, try to, change people's perspective or give people just to think about, and we're going to keep on moving on as long as we possibly can, and we appreciate all the people who's been listening and the new listeners who may come across this podcast in whatever form, whatever platform. We thank you all, and we want a steady rise, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally hundreds and thousands and millions of podcasts, and we glad you tune in to listen to us because, look, we come out here and what we try to do is we give you some opinions and some facts and sometimes leave you with a thought process. These are the things that we do here at the Grown Man Podcast, and to get to 100 episodes, and I think every one of them, as you can go back and listen to them, had a bit of knowledge that we can all use in our everyday life. That's what we try to do here on the Grown Men Podcast. We try to give you some thoughts, some positive thoughts, and some things that may be negative that's going on that you may need to know about in order for you to get yourself together. But, nevertheless, we glad for everybody who's listening to us and checking in. And Mark, I want to jump right into it. And it's something that's been on my mind. And that is because I've been hearing it lately from everyone about poverty and living conditions. So what does living in poverty do to people? So this is something that I came across, and this is what they had online about what poverty does to people. It says, living in poverty creates a cycle of chronic stress that affects the brain, body, and daily behavior. It forces individuals to constantly triage immediate crisis at the expense of long-term planning, and dramatically increases the risk of physical illness, cognitive setbacks, and social isolation. So that's a lot to take in right there, but what it does long-term to me is it creates bad and negative vibes and cycles in our communities, and we see that all the time with a lot of the behavior out on the streets from adults as well as children. So what do you think about what poverty does to people?
I feel like the whole thing about poverty, the biggest problem of it is that, it's such a dirty word, really. Nobody wants to be broke. Nobody wants to, be living in poverty. But, so many of us do. And, a lot of people, try to hide the fact, hide the truth from themselves. And it's when you do that, you don't go, you don't go to the core of the problem of why you are in a poverty situation. Because I mean, we live in like a superficial society, basically. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that like everywhere, like from the time that you like old enough to like comprehend things, you always been told, like, you know what I'm saying, the people who's enjoying life the most are the people who have money.
Yes.
Sports athletes, stars, movie stars, musicians, businessmen, whatever the case is. So, like, I mean, because if you're looking at poverty in like pretty much a black community, African American community and stuff like that, you talk about inner city. You talking about, the projects or whatever. I mean, the ones that's left. I mean, because I know a lot of projects been torn down, but basically they call it something else. But it's still basically like the projects where you got like a, bunch of people who's poor and don't have much. But it's like a inner setting. Then you got like rural America, which is more like the white folks or whatever, the ones that's like missing a lot of teeth out there in the countries and in the sticks, they can call it, in those deep woods. They don't have a lot of internet things like that. They living around dirt roads, trailer parks, all that. It's pretty much all the same things as you broke. Nobody's happy being broke, and nobody likes people that are broke and stuff like that. I mean, it's like eyesore and all that kind of stuff. And we don't address the problem to why, in the richest country in the world, in the greatest country in the world, as many people say, you got a 250 years of an anniversary and why we so great and all that kind of stuff, that we have people that are homeless, that's living in poverty and things like that. And it's quick to sit there and just blame and make excuses, be like, well, those people didn't try hard enough, or they lazy, or they want to do drugs and they don't want to do anything with their lives. So they made that choice to be broke. Nobody chooses to be broke. Nobody chooses to be in those conditions. So I say all that to go back to saying what you had read in the terminologies that you was reading now, how like all the problems that, like, come from being in poverty. I mean, that's what happens. You get hooked on drugs. You start drinking more. You get stressed out. You lash out at the people that's closest to you. And you're going to do harm to the people that's closest to you in your community and your environment. And we never address the fact of these big corporations, these big industries that drove people to be in poverty. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, we sit there and villainize, like, being broke, like you did something wrong. There's a lot of intelligent people and hardworking people that don't have money. That's the reality of the situation. We never highlight those people. We never highlight those like teachers and stuff who's dedicated to being educated and to, like, doing all of the things and like living a really pure life. Those people never get highlighted, and and we don't, as a country, don't do enough for those people. And like, teachers should be like pretty much one of the highest paid jobs.
Absolutely.
That should be around out there.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
Because they're responsible to, like, bring up the next generation in the best way possible, but they not, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, see, Mark, I look at it like this because there's so many levels to this, right? And what you just said is accurate, because I can even take it further. Think about it. All of us who are not millionaires and billionaires are a step away from being impoverished. All of us. Because for the simple fact, they keep raising the prices of things and your pay is not going up to equal this. So when you're in a situation like you just said, you got teachers who are trying to teach and educate students, and they're choosing to do this when they could be doing something else to make more money, but they chose this, an honorable profession, and yet they don't have enough money sometimes to feed themselves or their children. These are the problems and the levels that come with poverty. It's not just the guy you see on the corner begging for some money. It's not just the person who's on drugs. It's not just the kids who got abandoned. All of us are in the same boat. If we are not billionaires, which I've said this before, and I had this thought this week about billionaires, Mark, and I said, do we really need to be a billionaire? I know I don't. And a lot of people say, well, that's easy for you to say. No, I'm saying it because That's what kind of character I am. If I had $1 billion, I would give the bulk of that money away. Because what do I really need with $1 billion when there's 1 billion people in the world that are starving?
I mean, well, that's the whole thing about it. I mean, again, we are a superficial society that like glorifies wealth. I mean, whether you need it or not, I mean, it's just like, yeah, make more money, get more money, and have more. I mean, it's like, you know, and yes, the like argument is to like, yeah, you want to take care of your family, you want your kids to grow up with like better opportunities than you and all that kind of stuff. But again, like you just said, yeah, you don't need $1 billion, but I think I may have lost my train of thought. But I mean, basically, I mean, again, we sit there and glorify, like, you know what I'm saying, having money, and we never question, like, you know what I'm saying, what these people who have all these means, who have $1 billion, are doing with their money and stuff, and they wanna fight hard as hell to hang on to like every single dime of it. And I mean, if you are interested in having a society, you know what I'm saying, for like everybody to be able to be successful, I mean, then we are completely going about the wrong way. I mean, once again, like you know, resources are taken from, you know what I'm saying, from the poor and the like, no despair, and not to mention when like you have a health issue that come up. You know, somebody gets sick, you get cancer. You know, you get hit by a car, you break your legs, taking away your ability to earn, and now life is even more harder for you. I mean, if you can't, you know what I'm saying, be physically healthy enough to go out and try to work a job or to try to do anything, and we, you know. Again, those are like eyesores, and we try to like overlook that as a problem that drives people into poverty, that drives people to, like, you know what I'm saying, to drink or to do drugs or whatever the case is. But yeah, having $1 billion, I mean, like, you know, $999 million is more than enough.
Right.
$90 million is enough.
Right.
$10 million, you know what I'm saying, used to be enough at some point. I mean, it depends on how you try to live your life. If you want to just have a lifestyle where you just have a jet just to fly around, you know what I mean, it's like, and I get it, we all want to have a vacation and have some fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like, you know, when you just have stuff just to be having it, just for you can say that you got it and nobody else does. That's pretty much what it boils down to. When people want to be a billionaire, wants to have money, they want to have more than the next person. And they want to be able to brag about it and flaunt it. And we all celebrate it.
Yeah, that's what kind of bothers me, Mark, is that we live in a society, unfortunately, where it's like all we care about is our bottom line and no one else's. That's the thing that really gets me, because I can't see myself being in joy or having a good time knowing that there's people in this world that are starving, and I got the means to alleviate some of this. And you know, you see it happening right now in the federal government. I'm not going to get into a whole thing with that, but basically this administration took money from starving children. It was a quote that Bill Gates said when he spoke of Elon Musk. He said, "Here is the world's richest man starving the world's poorest children." And that's exactly what's apropos for what happened when they took away that aid for the kids to eat. And it wasn't even like they were eating nothing grand, like they're suggesting the same thing here in the United States, where it's like, okay, we'll eat this instead of that. But they're not doing the same thing. They're not practicing what they're preaching because they feel like they have it. You don't, tough luck, deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, that was all a scam. I mean, we talking about like the Doge stuff and everything like that. I mean, that was a way to help Elon avoid investigations of all the things that, like, you know what I'm saying, him and his companies was involved of. And I mean, from like, you know, environmental health to all kind of like deregulations that they was doing. I mean, for like him to get more closer to becoming the world's first trillionaire.
Right.
Because that's what it's all about. He's about to become that in like in a matter of months, it seems to be. But again, like we are taught, this society is to take care of you, take care of your own, to be more selfish. And that's what we all have been driven towards one way or the other. I mean, and unfortunately for like many of our communities with people that look like us and other people of all kind of different racial backgrounds and stuff, I mean, we've been led to believe that's the way to go, and we abandoned. I mean, we pretty much left our morals at the doorstep. I mean, like the world have changed a great lot from like 40 and 50 years ago. I mean, that whole like togetherness and all that kind of stuff. I mean, people don't want to be together. Why be together if you can have stuff on your own? And that's, we became more selfish minded, and until something big and grand happens in like a pandemic, then that's when everybody want to join forces again and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the whole point is, like I said, if you want to live in democracy and, you want to see the country, if you love the country so much, you want to see it grow and everybody succeed. And if we're doing a terrible job at it, I mean, you got to let go of the selfishness, and you got to have more empathy for like all people.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that we're going to continue to discuss on the Grown Men podcast, because no one should live in poverty. No one. We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. There's no way that there should be people living in poverty. But I want to move on to the next thing, Mark, and that ties right into that, is I have no expectations of Black Americans. And I've been hearing it right and left and all over. If you read it online, if you listen to any kind of podcast, or you're listening to anything, all you hear is Black Americans saying, well, my statements are, I'm not political, or, this statement ain't got nothing to do with politics, and on and on and on, because they're trying to justify their position. And I heard this recently on one of D.L. Hughley's podcasts, where he was speaking on that, where I believe it was like Tiki Barber and a couple of other people who were, talking about how they engaged with Trump and they didn't have a thing, and things are political. And they spoke about the George Floyd situation. Some things are not political, and that is 100% accurate. But what I'm seeing with Black Americans, I no longer have any expectations, because we spoke about this, and I was speaking with someone this week about it, is that people that you liked in your childhood, or people that you kind of were fond of their art, their craft, or whatever it be, you find out how they really think and you lose respect for them. And the one thing I say is I no longer have expectations for Black Americans. I don't expect them to, be honorable. I don't expect them to have dignity, because I see that a lot of them don't. And I'm not speaking of all Black Americans. I would never do that. But there is a percentage that is on that fringe, and they only care about what they can get. And by any means, if they have to lay down with dogs to get it, then that's what they'll do. But what do you say?
I mean, well, it all goes back to what we had discussed in the last segment. I mean, it all goes back to capitalism, to money, to greed, all of it. I mean, we have been captured. We have been captured as a society, and particularly as Black Americans, and it's the whole divide and conquer and stuff. Like any Black, I mean, well, I don't want to say this. You can take the most successful Black American or Black person, right? Where they say they are really good at sports, at basketball, right? Let's use basketball. So,
right.
Once that kid, gets scouted by colleges and these big universities and stuff, once they start that whole process, the more and more they sit there and separate that kid from the coach, from the people. They don't encourage. Matter of fact, they discourage them from joining any kind of fraternities.
Right.
Especially Black frats and things like that.
Right.
They don't want them to have that type of knowledge, and I mean, what they want to get them away from their own is this is the way to go. Focus on your career and your skills and all that kind of stuff. So that kid goes to NBA, right? They make a whole lot of money, and once you get in that whole bubble of being a person with money, having things and stuff that you never had before, the more and more distance you become from your community. I mean, we see that all the time. I mean, we spoke about that with, like, you know what I'm saying, like the likes of Ice Cubes and people like that we used to, like, you know what I'm saying, look up to in the Maya and all that kind of stuff. I mean, basically, they allow the money to change people. As long as we're going to be captured by, you know what I'm saying, having money, I mean, that's just where it's going to be. And that's not for, like, all black people. I mean, because I get what you're saying. Like, I mean, as far as, like, yeah, you giving up on, like, no black American. It's like, you're not going to be able to save everybody. But the silver lining is that there are, like, a lot of younger black folks that are becoming, dare I say, woke, or, like, you know what I'm saying, going back and rereading history and paying attention to what's going on. So I don't think it's a complete lost cause for everybody, but again, you know, you're not going to be able to save everybody. So what I can say as far as, like, you know, how do we move and stuff? I mean, like, again, you can't save every black person, but the ones that are getting it, I mean, like, those the ones I would like to, like, lift up more and highlight more. And it's like you gotta look at a more bigger picture, like, you know what I'm saying, beyond your block, your neighborhood, your country even. And, like, 'cause the thing about African Americans, so just pretty much African people, we are worldwide. We're all over the globe. You know, I mean, we got that big continent. But we're in so many continents around the whole world that, like, you know, blackness is gonna always survive no matter what, I believe.
I agree.
But, like, as far as, like, in American and in politics and things like that, I mean, you know, things gonna get a whole lot worse before it gets better. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Mark. It's just that I never say I give up on black Americans. What I say is I have no expectations, because when you raise your expectations of what you think people should be, and they do something that's the polar opposite, then you kind of get in that letdown phase. And my thing is I'm at the point in my life where I'm not going to be let down by anybody anymore with that. So my thing is, if you say what you say and you stand on it, that's fine. But as I've said before, when you stumble and fall, don't run back to the black community and look for help. Don't look for help in your endeavors. That's my whole thing. Don't come back looking for help with your endeavors, because you turned your back on the black community when the black community needed you. When your ideals were not what you thought they should be listened to, then you get attitudes and do things differently. So that's what I'm saying. I know there's a lot of young black Americans that are doing things, but what I'm saying is, for the ones who turn their back, don't come back. Stay over there.
Well, you know what? I mean, the onus is pretty much within the people, within the community on that one. I mean, let's use Kanye West as a
exactly. He's a prime.
Did all that stuff, and
he's a prime example.
Whatever the damn Confederate flag, kilts, and all that kind of weird stuff he was doing. Then, like, he recently dropped album a couple months ago, and he made some money off of that album, and I would suspect many of the folks that had supported that project or bought that or paid some money or whatever, were like black people and stuff. So I mean that's on us to not allow these people to come back in, and that's a problem that we as a whole keep doing that. I don't think enough of us flat out dismiss people or exile them out the culture.
We never do.
That's just
we never do, Mark. We're the most forgivable people for whatever reason. We have brain amnesia. We'll say, "Oh, I don't like what he said, but he makes some good music." See, that they don't have no principles in my eyes. They don't have no principles, because you'll go for anything. Somebody can hit you in the face with a bat, but if you like them well enough, oh, he was just having a bad day. That would be the excuse. That's my problem, is that we keep coming up with excuses for allowing Black Americans who have turned their back on us to then be reaccepted. No. As I said previous on a podcast before, if you have wronged the Black community as a Black American, you have to live with that. You have to do the work if you want to get back into the community and be in community with us. You don't just get a free pass to walk back in just because you're a celebrity. No. It doesn't work for anyone. That goes for the highest celebrity to the lowest celebrity. It makes no difference to me in my eyes. See, you go out there, go ahead and what you were saying.
No, my bad. I was just going to say, and that's why, like, in a way, like, with all that's been happening in the last 10 years or so, this whole, like, era of Trumpism, now known as Felon 47, is right, going around and all this kind of stuff, and his brutal attack on Black America. This is the good thing about it, this stuff, because because if this thing keep on the lines to happen, and again, it's gonna get a whole lot worse before it gets better. And calls would, like, hopefully wake up more and more people to, like, see what the hell is going on. And because it unfortunately takes a whole lot of pain for people to, like, realize, what's going on. Once they start losing things and having things taken away from them more and more, that's the thing. It haven't touched and reached everybody yet. Like I say, you got a guy like Tiki Barber up there talking and saying the stupid, idiotic comments that he made. It's just once again, it haven't affected him yet, because Tiki Barber, he's not in them streets like that.
Well, we know that
he's not out there. He's still getting he's getting a check to do what he's told to do.
Exactly.
So,
and he loves dating white women and marrying them and everything else that goes along with that. And my thing about guys like him, when you can sit up there and equate George Floyd having a knee on his damn neck as political, then there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you, because there was nothing political about that. It's nothing political about that.
And that's a reality of the situation. There's something wrong with that person, and people should see that. And the ones that don't see it, I just hope that they're going to see it eventually. But for the rest of us who do see it, we got to act accordingly. It's like, don't get mad, get smart. Like, you distance yourself from the people. You stop supporting them people. Same thing with Kevin Hart. Stop supporting Kevin Hart until, like, he apologized like he had to do to the gay community.
Right.
Kevin Hart, he ain't have no problem, like, apologizing to them, like, real quick and stuff. But, like, when it comes to the Black community, you want to get all defensive and start, like, boasting about all he done for, like, Black, like, comedians and things like that. He is, that's all BS. It's all nonsense. But that's the whole thing. It takes the community as a whole. I think we get more and more people that's, like, starting to recognize that a little bit more. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a process, because this whole white supremacy, they have done a number on us for, like, decades, if not centuries.
Yep.
So, that's a whole lot to, like, sit there and, like, unravel and to rework and all of those things. So it's going to take a process with that. And, it just, us as individuals and as a collective gotta, like, have the discipline to say, like, hey, I'm not buying into this. Just like for the ones who still doesn't watch the National Football League.
Right.
I'm one of those people who still don't watch.
Right.
Because of the because of the treatments of, like, Kaepernick and stuff like that. I know people, no. It's like, you gotta have that discipline within yourself, and you gotta be willing to, like, take the stance. Like, I don't force nobody to believe what I believe, but I will have an argument and a message if you, like, ask for it. And
right.
Sit there, like, put it out there.
Right.
That's all I can do. It's up to you to sit there and accept it. Either you're going to sit there and, like, drink the clean glass of water, or you want the water with, with all the dirt up in it.
Right.
That's in the dirty glass and stuff like that, because it tastes better, because they put, like, some sugar in it. So you're gonna drink out that dirty glass because you're drinking that sugar water,
right?
Or maybe they put like a little Kool-Aid in it with it. So yeah, it's still a dirty grass you're drinking out of, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's one of them situations, you know, where there's no end to this in sight. I mean, it's going to continue to be the same thing. But my thing is I just don't have no expectations. So I think people should stop getting outraged when people say or do things. And that's speaking of the Kevin Harts and the Tiki Barbers and the Cubes and anybody else. The things that they say, people should stop being outraged. And I know they don't do it. They're going to call people out on social media because that's the popular thing to do. But I just stop supporting people. I hit them where it hurts, and that's the dollars in their pockets. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Mark, was the Supreme Court recently rejecting the NFL arbitration bid in the Brian Flores case. Now, this is something that is tied along to the Rooney Rule, which we talked about on the Grown Man podcast before, where Flores filed that arbitration because there were several times where he had interviews where there were never any intentions on teams hiring him, and they only did it because of the Rooney Rule. I know me and you were talking about that offline a little bit. Why don't you give your insight on it?
Well, first off, I want to say, like, we got to give big props to Flores because, well, the simple fact is that he could have settled.
Yeah,
there have been numerous times that he could have settled and got a big payday, like got some money out of it. Even Kaepernick settled and got some money, and of course he used that money to, like, you know what I'm saying, do good things, like, you know, for a community and raise awareness and things like that. I mean, I'm not gonna begrudge him for doing that. Everybody make their choice, but the thing with Flores is, like, I believe that he didn't want to settle because he wants to push this issue.
Exactly.
He's trying actively to, like, put an end to all this nonsense because it is nonsense.
Yeah.
It's beyond ridiculous. I mean, it's like they sit there and try to hide, and like they use, like, you know, cloak and dagger to, like, you know, hide the fact of they, like, you know what I'm saying, what I would say, like, discreet racism.
Yes.
At the end of the day,
yes,
because we always good enough to do the work when it comes to running the ball and catching the ball. I mean, look how long, like we talked about before, look how long it took to see, like, you know what I'm saying, like a black quarterback. It usually was like, you know, it used to be like one black quarterback every 10 years or something like that. And, like, I mean, how many chances do those black quarterbacks get to succeed?
Right.
Like, once they have one bad season, you know what I'm saying, people ready to write them off and stuff like that. So now we finally at a point where you're seeing more and more, like, you know what I'm saying, black quarterbacks getting drafted and getting opportunity. But I mean, it's still, like, you know, most quarterbacks who's, like, out there that's, like, you know, big time and famous, or your top 10 quarterbacks is going to be mostly, like, you know what I'm saying, white guys. So, like, yeah, going to the whole coaching and stuff like that, I mean, you mean to tell me that, like, a black guy or like a Mexican guy or, like, you know, whoever that's, like, you know, qualified to be, you know, considered to be a coach or be in the front office don't have the know-how, don't have the, like, expertise when we give, like, you know what I'm saying, mediocre white people all the chances in the world. Because that's why I like the phrase so much, WEI.
Yeah.
White entitled incompetence.
Yes.
How many incompetent people have you seen that was white that gets all these monies that, like, you know, fail upwards?
Yes.
Every time they fail, they get another opportunity. Like, you've seen many coaches and stuff. I don't got names in front of me, but I mean, there's been many coaches that got it, that have received second and third and fourth chances and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, with this Supreme Court, I mean, they are who they are. This is a extreme right-leaning Supreme Court that don't want to do anything that's going to benefit anybody with darker skin tones and complexions. That's just the bottom line. And they're going to sit there and be like, oh, there's no racism, oh, this and that. I mean, just because nobody calls you the N-word to your face don't mean that racism is not there.
Exactly.
I mean, that's their whole, like, argument in a nutshell. Like, you know, people have to be, like, you know, directly racism, and that's the game that they play. And once again, it's like up to us as the people as a whole to wake up to this nonsense and push back against it, because that's the only thing that's going to change. Like the NFL practices is if you start hurting their pockets.
Yes. That's the only way, Mark. And the thing I want to talk about is when you look at this situation, there have been many coaches, and Steele and I have talked about this several times. Ray Rhodes up in Green Bay was fired after one season. He was fired. Right here in Chicago, Lovie Smith had a 10-6 record with the Chicago Bears. They fired him. And I never got over that. That's why when Steele and I talk, that's why I tell him they're not my number one team. They never were, but then they dropped down even further, because on the sports spectrum for me, it's White Sox, Bulls, and then the Bears. The Bears at the end of my list, because when they done that, that made me mad. It really pissed me off, because how many white coaches you know have 10-6 records that get fired? Not many. Now, they fired the guy in Buffalo because they said he was what he was. And I'm not going to say it on air, but they basically said he was that type of guy that, people didn't like, and he rubbed people the wrong way. That's what was said. I don't know the guy personally, but he got fired. But Lovie Smith was doing the best job he could do with what he was given here in Chicago, and he had a 10-6 record, and yet he got fired. As far as what went on with the NFL and what they do, it kind of reminds me of right now in Alabama, right, where they're redistricting. So now bear with me as I break this down. Now, you have the NFL and you have Alabama. Okay, the NFL is like 80% or 80%, somewhere in that range, 75 to 80% black, right? Same way you go down there in Alabama and the percentage of the people is higher are black. And yet they're trying to take their representatives away and say, no, a white person can represent black people in this district just the same way as a black person can represent them. Same way in the NFL. They believe that white coaches should be able to coach black players. You know why? Because whites are smarter and whites know more. That's their main thing. And once again, the head coach of a football team, he has 50-some slaves that work under him, because that's what it is. They have the ability to be what they would call slave drivers, and they're pushing these guys to the limit. This is what goes on in the NFL. If you think about the offseason where they're poking and prodding players and saying who looks good and who doesn't, what does that remind you of? That reminds you of an auction block in slavery. So that's my opinion. But I mean, what do you got to say about it?
I mean, why they don't want to interrupt the system and stuff. When you talk about taking house seats away in Alabama and Louisiana and all that kind of stuff. I mean, breaking up. I mean, it's like they know they have the population and stuff. I mean, like you never had to say white districts, because that become the norm. So that's the whole thing. They don't want to break up the system. They want to keep control. I mean, it's all about control at the end of the day, and they're afraid of if more like minorities, which are becoming a majority pretty soon. As a collective. I mean, because we talked about this before too. Less than 20 years. I mean, maybe even less than 15 years. I mean, you're gonna see the United States be a majority of minorities. Meaning that, the white population in the country overall is going to be down to less than 50%, and that scares the hell out of so many people, because they're afraid of retaliation. They're afraid they feel they're going to lose something. They're going to lose that whole control.
Right.
Like something's going to be taken away from them.
Right.
And none of that is going to happen, to be honest.
Right.
Most people don't have these evil concepts that, whiteness has. And what I mean by whiteness, I separate that from the well-meaning white folks, because there are some good white people out there that's well-meaning and all that kind of good stuff that don't that don't subscribe to, like, you know what I'm saying, whiteness.
Right.
Is a power concept.
Right.
It means that you are in control. You need to be in control. Like, you are the greatest. All of that kind of stuff. They need that.
Right.
I mean, because that's the whole machine. So yeah, they don't want any kind of disruptions to the machine. And again, I mean, it takes the people as a collective to be like, hey, man, we ain't going with this no more. I mean, that's how you're going to hurt the NFL if you lose it, if you take away viewership, if you sit there and take away, if you like hit them at the bank account, then that's when things going to change. Same thing it was with Major League Baseball, which we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
With the Negro League was becoming more and more popular. Like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't just black folks going to sit there and watch them games. It was like a lot of white folks going to see because they appreciated good baseball.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, same thing with basketball. The like NBA, it used to be only two black people was allowed to be at the league to, like, you know, get into the league and stuff. If you look, you know, back in the 40s and 50s and all that kind of stuff like that, I mean, and there's like, yeah, we need to get some more blacks in this game to, like, you know what I'm saying, make it more and more profitable. So at the end of the day, it's all about control. They want to stay in control. They don't want to lose that power, and they fear that, like, if they lose that power, they're gonna start, like, having things taken away from them and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, like I said, they never got over the events of, like, the Civil War. They never got over the whole, like, civil rights movement, none of it and stuff. They want things to be put back in place, and that's where we at right now.
Yeah, it's one of them situations where, you know, we're going to continue to talk about it here on the Grown Men Podcast, because this subject is not going away by no means. You know, I mean, Brian Flores and other coaches are starting to speak out and say, look, what is this? I mean, you're never considering to hire us seriously. We're never serious candidates. You're only doing it because of this rule, which a lot of people won't take it away. But it's going to be a fight, and we're going to continue to monitor it right here on the Grown Men Podcast. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Mark, is, does the truth really matter anymore? I mean, when you look at broadcast television, as far as the news, as far as all these outlets and shows and different things, and even the podcasts that we hear, when people say things without it even being vetted, people run with it. It's like recently, except when it comes to black people, because once again, when you had that doctor who recently was saying she was a doctor and they were questioning her credentials, it's fine and dandy to do that. But for everyone else, especially someone named Felon 47, you can say anything out of your mouth and people will consider it to be truth. So where do we go, Mark? I mean, what do we believe in? And are people still powerless to stand up to tell the truth?
Oh, man, we have all the power in the world if we choose to use it. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, it's like we said before, man, some people just they want the lie. I mean, because the truth sometimes can be too powerful. The truth sometimes can be a reflection of yourself. And it's like, you don't want to believe certain things and stuff. So, like, yeah, you want to go on that lie. I mean, but the truth is always out there. It's like, again, it's up to that individual. It's up to that community, that society to be like, no, we ain't gonna sit there and listen to this BS, man. We gonna give me the raw, unfiltered truth. You know what I'm saying? Good or bad. That's just like if you go to the damn doctor's office and stuff, and oh man, you don't want to hear that you got cancer.
Right.
So what do you want the doctor to do? Be like, oh, you know, your breathing is just a little bit slightly off, but you just keep drinking some water.
Right.
You know, I mean, if the doctor know that you got cancer in your body, like, you know what I'm saying, that something gonna bad happen to you, like, yeah, you probably want that doctor to tell you the truth, or you can sit there and prepare yourself. Otherwise, the same thing, you got something wrong with your car and stuff, you want to know the truth of what's going on with it. You don't want to keep on driving, then like the damn tire pop off. I mean, but like a lot of us are like afraid to, like, you know what I'm saying, comprehend that, and then we take it as a personal affront to ourselves. And the bottom line is, the truth is always out there if you're willing to go out there and seek it. Now, in cases where, like, unfortunately, you have these like the media, which is like the First Amendment of the Constitution and stuff, like, freedom of press and all that kind of stuff. It was put out there for a reason, because in many countries still to this day, their news and their media are like only allowed
state
to
control
report on things and say things that the leadership allows them to.
State control. That's what CBS
State
is
control
becoming.
media.
That's what CBS is becoming. State control media.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what Fox News has always been.
Yes.
And then, like, you know what I'm saying, to, like, lesser degrees, like the other stations, like MS Now and CNN. CNN, they try to, like, do the whole both sides thing, but it's all controlled because, like, a lot of those media organizations have been bought out by corporations.
Right.
That are not, like, you know what I'm saying, news first corporations. And corporations, at the end of the day, is about profit.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what everything boils down to. Once again, it's that bag, it's the profit, it's the bottom line. It's about how much money can we make. And like I said, the truth don't get you paid as much as a lie will.
Right. Now you hitting it where it hurts. Yep, you absolutely right about that, Marv, because for the simple fact, I see people doing it all the time, and it's not just in politics, but it's just when people say something, they run with it. They post it on social media when none of this stuff has been vetted. It's not been verified that this is the truth. And sometimes it'd be like, okay, we're not talking about something in the hood where you would lie over something petty like, oh, I just got on a plane and went to California or whatever. Not things like that, but I'm talking about things that can affect people's everyday lives. That's what concerns me. I could care less. If you want to lie to your friends, that's fine and dandy. But as you said when we just talked a few minutes ago, when you talk about medical and things of that nature, you would like people to be honest and upfront and be truthful with you. And you don't want people with a bunch of crazy nonsense and ideas. And that's coming right now out of Felon 47's administration, because everybody that he's hired, all of these people lie, and they continuously lie. And then they go in front of Congress and they lie, which is supposed to be against the law. They'll say they didn't say that. And then they know full well that they did say it.
Yeah.
And people look around, not to cut you off and let you finish, but I just wanted to get this last thought in. People look around and they see people lying all the time and they say, well, why not? Everyone else is doing it. So I believe it's one of these things for me is I believe if you tell a lie for so long and you lie so much that people just accept that's what you do is lie, and they accept it and they move on.
Well, yeah, it's a problem. And unfortunately, that's something that, like, our elected officials have to address. I mean, that's the thing. People have to be held accountable, because that's the more serious part of this, is that these lies do become things that boils down to life or death situations. So, like, losing income or your houses and all these kind of things. Like, man, when you sitting there fighting off this lie, we've been in fighting over things that's been alive for decades, a century, pretty much. Just about every single war this country has been involved in as a whole has been based off a lie with sprinkles of truth in it.
Right.
But it's been based off of lies.
Right.
And we have lost money and resources over those lies. And that's the thing, man. When you don't have leadership that's being held accountable, like every time I see clips or videos of those like conferences that they have with the House or the Senate, when they bring in these administrative folks and stuff to answer questions about things and stuff like that. It's just a head shaking moment, because it's like they're not gonna be held accountable like we hope that they would, and that's what should happen if we have free and fair elections still, and you have Democrats retaking some kind of form of power, or if you get a different person to come in and be the president, and that, it's things that affect us as a whole. But like I was saying in earlier segments, problem is that we as a society has lost our morals, and we don't have empathy for, like, you know, other people that's not in our family or that's not us altogether. Hell, we got people that don't even care about their family members. It's all about me.
Right.
So until when and if I get affected, I'm just not going to care.
Right.
And then, like, you know what I'm saying, people find that way. Once you see somebody being successful off those lies and stuff, you think like, okay, well, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
It's like, why tell the truth? Why? You know what I'm saying? While I'm sitting there doing the right thing and I'm going to sit there and follow the rules, where like these shortcuts can get me, you know what I'm saying, closer to the goals I want to get to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Same way with people, like, you know what I'm saying, started becoming drug dealers and stuff like that. They got tired of, like, you know what I'm saying, you know, scraping and scratching and surviving, trying to work these damn jobs where you can sit there and, like, you know what I'm saying, move some weight and, like, you know what I'm saying, get your money in one big bundle where you can get houses and things and cars and all that kind of stuff that you need. I mean, it's just like that was pretty much the whole, like, premise of the TV show Breaking Bad and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was a teacher struggling. He gets cancer. He can't get, you know what I'm saying, money for these treatments, so he starts selling drugs.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what we have made this society out to be, and now it's pretty much run amok. Felon 47 and his administration and all the people that's like backing this stuff has exposed way too much.
Yep.
And it's gonna break down. And you know, the good thing about the breaking down is that we do have an opportunity to rebuild better than what it is, and to become more of an honest society. That don't mean everybody got to become Christians and be, you know, whatever. I mean, like, no, people are gonna be flawed regardless, but people should be held
accountable.
Should be held accountable.
Yeah.
These flaws is going to affect a mass amount of people. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's one of them situations where what you just said summed it right up, Mark, because people who lie that hold public office should be held accountable when they lie. Don't put it on the back burner. If the Democratic Party gets control of the House and the Senate, don't put it on the back burner. We want these people brought in and prosecuted just like we would be if we lied to Congress. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Mark, was a story that was in the news recently, and that is the man in South Carolina that was found not guilty in the killing of a 14-year-old over some stolen bottled water. And this case happened back in 2023, but they're just not going to full trial with it, of course. But, you know, there are people on both sides of this argument. Once again, you had the attorney for the man who did the killing, and then you also had the prosecutor. The prosecutor put a bottle of water right in front of the jurors and said, this is basically was worth a life, a bottle of water. So there are two sides to the story. Once again, they said that a 14-year-old took something out of the store. He was running and he had a gun. The father says he feared that he was going to shoot his son, so he shot him. But, you know, there is a history here, and unfortunately, it's a bad history between, you know, Asian Americans and Black Americans in this country. And it's one of those situations where they looked at what happened out in California back during the 92 riots or whatever the case, when they thought that the young girl had something and she was shot and killed. So a lot of people are saying, don't buy anything from Asian stores, and they're boycotting and this whole thing. But it's a whole big deal, and a lot of people are hurt behind it. What do you think about it?
I just think it's all unfortunate. I mean, it's just one of those situations where it's like, Black life has no value. And, we as Black people do not help our cause when we don't value each other. We don't value ourselves. Like everything, for me, honestly, like the whole world should be shut down over something like that, because nobody deserves to be killed over no bottle of water. Same way Mr. Big George Floyd did not deserve to die because he was trying to pass a counterfeit $20 bill.
A counterfeit $20 bill.
human life is what we talking about and what people are going back and forth on. And you always hear that all the time, anytime, like, black people get stopped by police or whatever. Oh, well, you should just comply. Or you should just do this, that. Like, there should be no cause. As far as like this whole, like, black and Asian thing goes and stuff, I mean, it's once again, like, Asians, a lot of Asians, I'm not going to say all of them. And I don't even want to just say just like, Asians and stuff, because like that's such a blanket statement, because you have like Chinese, you have Vietnamese, you have Japanese people, you have Filipinos.
Well,
I guess are more.
This gentleman, I believe,
was one group.
This gentleman, I believe, was Korean, and there's a history there with Korean people and black people. There is some stuff there, so it's not. I didn't. At the top of my statement, I wasn't disparaging Asian people, because Asian people are great people, just like black people are great people. It's just there's misconceptions going on, and there's a lot of things that happen in these communities that involve these two ethnicities that causes this, Mark.
And that's the key word right there that you just said, misconceptions, and that's the whole problem. I mean, my whole thing is it boils down to like we have to see everybody as like human beings. We have to see the humanity in everybody, and that's the problem.
Right.
As a whole, it's like when you don't have, when you value certain people over other people. I mean, life is life. There's no going back. Once you take somebody's life, there's no coming back. There's no video game. There's no amount of money, no amount of anything that's going to bring that life back. You can get a big settlement like the family. That's it. And that young man family can go and sue in civil court and get like this big great settlement. They can get like millions and billions of dollars, but that's not going to bring back that kid's life.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. Like, man, it's like, you want to talk about some past histories. Oh, well, this person, so and so did this back in the 90s and the Rodney King riots, and they destroyed Korean stores, or they did this and they did that. You can always go back and keep going back and keep going back. You can go back to what, what I'm saying, what Koreans done in the continent of Africa and everything. Bottom line is none of that matters. It's about how you view, humanity. And that's the big issue for me, is that we don't have the value of black life. And we, in many cases, like we don't value ourselves enough, because if this was a white kid, that wouldn't, things would have been so much different.
Yeah,
it's so much different. That's the whole bottom line, and the way I see it.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that is very unfortunate. And, once again, I mean, the jurors, I don't know what the jurors were thinking. Maybe they looked at it and said, oh, he had a gun, which, once again, that's speculation, because...
Well, you look up at the makeup of the jurors, too. Once again, I mean, there's another situation where I believe it was a mostly white juror.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there you go. I mean, and that's the thing that's so flawed, and that's something else that we all should be aware of, because, like, nobody really wants to do jury duty, at least in my community and stuff. We always find ways to avoid it, but, like, when we do that, that means somebody else gonna fill that seat that's not like us. Just like you get the case with the kid, a Carmelo kid. They had shot and killed the white kid in Texas, and he's claiming stand your ground. Stand my ground.
Yeah.
Almost. I mean, this is now going to trial right now.
Right.
That killing happened about almost a couple years ago, and like what I'm saying, and like his jury is pretty much an all white jury.
Right.
No, not pretty much. It is all white jury.
Right.
So let's see how that's going to work out for that young man.
Yeah.
Because there's like a lot of evidence that his lawyer has showing that, like, he was not the one to start the conflict.
Right.
There's been an ongoing conflict, with the kid that lost his life, who was a bully.
Right.
These are like, kids that's two rival schools and all that kind of stuff. both was playing football and stuff for their like respective schools and everything, and it was just like a case with bullying, bullying went too far, and you know what I'm saying. Unfortunately, that kid lost his life, but the other kid claims that he was standing his ground, just like the killer of Trayvon Martin felt he stood his ground and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I mean, it's these situations where like, you know, we need to have more of a fair jury to like, you know what I'm saying, to be involved in these cases. And anytime that you get a all white juror, or like even if the roles was flipped and you had an all black juror, you know, that wouldn't be fair either. I mean, basically, like it boils down to like you got to have a fair jury pool. With like, you know what I'm saying, life experience to like, you know what I'm saying, sit over these matters.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's a sad case. And, you know, the one that you were speaking on, I'm familiar with that as well. And we're going to talk about that once more details come out and that trial is settled. But it's one of these situations where I think that there's something to be learned from this tragedy, because that's what it is. And people need to see what is going on and what is happening in our communities. You know, the store owners and the different people, we need to know these people. We need to work with these people to ensure something like this never happens again. Another topic I wanted to talk about, Mark, was Ghana. Ghana, you know, we talk about Ghana a lot because a lot of people said they wanted to move back to Ghana. There's a lot of people that I know were talking about doing it. But Ghana now wants to make LGBTQ a criminal offense. So being gay, so to speak, they want that to be criminalized. What do you say about what's going on over there in Ghana?
Well, I say is, I mean, it's very unfortunate. I mean, because I mean, once again, that's very closed-minded. That's very closed-minded.
Yes.
Because in this day and age, I mean, we're in the 21st century. Like, I mean, you would think by now that, like, you know, people, you know, should have the right and the freedom to love who they want to love and be who they want to be. I mean, like, you know, I really don't care about what goes on in anybody's bedroom. You know, I mean, what they doing, you know, what they sell. So, like, you know, whoever they doing it with, as long as it's not harming anybody.
Right,
you know
right.
what I'm saying? If you ain't doing nothing to no kids, you know, if you ain't sitting there, like, you know what I'm saying, abusing, you know what I'm saying, nobody in my family and nobody I know,
right.
I can care less about what a person can do. And that don't mean, like, you know what I'm saying, it shouldn't mean anything to, like, anybody who somebody chooses to be with. You should have the freedom to like do all those things. And then with all that said, unfortunately, the Ghanaians and, you know, in that country, you have like a lot of people that are still like, you know, very close-minded and very, you know, they kind of goes back to like, you know what I'm saying, like last segment we was talking about with these lies and these misconceptions and all of these things, and you know, they feel a certain way about certain things that like too many other people out there, you know what I'm saying, believe these old tropes.
Yeah,
of like, you know, homosexuality and like, you know, oh, that
teaching people to be gay. I mean, this is stupid. It's
and that's going
stupid.
to affect the population if you have a whole lot of gay people and all this kind of stuff. It's all nonsense, and it's very unfortunate for a country, especially like Ghana, because they are a very proactive country that's been doing a lot of great things over the past years. I mean, recently, you know, they was the ones to, like, you know what I'm saying, put the word out there to, like, you know, acknowledge the human crimes of chattel slavery.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it's very unfortunate. It's disappointing.
Yeah, it's one of them situations where I wanted to speak on it a little bit because, like you said, you thought that Ghana was a country that was making big strides. You thought they were, you know, trying to do some big things, and yet they take a big step back in this kind of decision, and it makes no sense. And to me, it looks like they're taking a more European stance, of as far as the United States, alike in those kind of things, in those kind of matters and issues.
And that's and that's the thing about it too. Like, I mean, it's also with them to make sure that they want to maintain good relations and get resources and all that kind of stuff, because these countries and stuff. I mean, all these countries pretty much like a business and stuff like that, and they know that certain countries just don't accept those certain kind of things. They feel that they need to get certain kind of resources or have certain kind of partnerships with these countries and stuff too. So I mean, that's what it all boils down to. It's just like when the WWE, when they go out there to go and get that Saudi Arabia money,
right?
Saudi Arabia, they don't allow women to expose themselves.
Right.
So if they female talent, accepts the job to go out there and perform, to put on the show, they gotta cover up and all that kind of stuff.
Right,
They're
everything.
not allowed to be as free as they, as they would like to be in this country over here. It's the same thing goes over there, and it just, once again, it's so many people around the world, so many people that has power and leadership that wants things to be one way, but it's the other way. And they're going to find out it's the other way, because, I mean, you're going to see more and more of a rise of the people, because, the younger people are rising up once again. I mean, the next generation is coming along. The next generation is just not going to stand for a lot of these things. So it's going to become a big situation. And as people, as I hate to say, because I'm tired of getting thrown around so much, is history is not going to remember them well. But
absolutely.
That's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to go back years later in the history books. That's going to be a bad look.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, very disappointed in what Ghana did, but I'm quite sure it's going to be more countries that are going to take this kind of stance, because they're trying to curry favor, like you said, with whatever country that they're working with. Another topic I wanted to jump on to, Mark, was Richard Pryor's daughter. She's saying she spent her whole career studying the N-word. And I read the article about what she was saying, because she teaches at a college, I believe. And she was saying the impact of the N-word and what her father told her, which was never let anyone call you that, because that's the word that we gave power to by not allowing them to use it against us and get away with it. And I found it very interesting, the article, that she was saying all these different, students that she have, and how she tries to explain, the meaning of the word and the concept. And as we spoke earlier in the podcast, it's not always been about the word itself. It's the use of the word and the way you use it. But what do you have to say about, people using the N-word and that whole deal that goes along with that?
Well, I mean, people have the right, to me, to say, whatever they want to say. I mean, a free speech is something that I still believe in. With that said, I mean, there definitely will be consequences when you choose to do that. I mean, it's a word, as we spoke about off air. I mean, words, doesn't mean anything until people make it mean something.
The intent. Mm-hmm.
Right, the intent. And when it comes to the N-word and stuff, that intent was to be derogatory,
right,
to devalue,
right,
all of the things,
right.
And because people who are a reader of of history and things of that nature would know that the original word, I mean, where the word originated from was Ethiopia, and that was the word negus.
Negus, right,
Niga,
right.
Which meant royalty.
Mm-hmm.
Which meant something of honor, of higher stature.
Mm-hmm.
And what tend to happen oftentimes, a lot of times, is that the Europeans, and not just them. You got like, Portuguese people and all that kind of stuff. Basically, like, what I'm saying, whoever like, subscribe to consider themselves involved in whiteness, they usually take it and they flip it to make it mean something else. And it's like, for us as a community and stuff, I mean, we know that like, horrors of the word and all that kind of stuff. And we try to take the power back by using it. You drop the ER and you put the hard A or whatever the case is and all that kind of stuff. And there's people that go back and forth on that to say like, yeah, well, we shouldn't use it either. Like nobody should be using it. And we hear it in songs and we hear it in pop culture and everything like that. And as a individual or like as a group, as a community, is like, how do we perceive it? How do we allow that stuff to be used? And then it's like, we have friends that's like not in our race and all that kind of stuff. And we tend to like, let things slide and we tend to normalize it in a way. And so it's like, you have to like, basically like, pick and choose how you gonna allow that to like, affect you. Because at the end of the day, words are just words. And they shouldn't have any kind of power over the way you move in life. I mean, once again, if you're going to let it affect you in such a way, then you should stand on it and do something about it.
Right. I agree 100% with what you said, Mark, because for the simple fact, look, you've used it, I've used it. A lot of people have used the word and we talk about it all the time. But it's the intent, I've always said. I mean, because and something you just brought up is like when other people of other ethnicities and races or whatever the case may be use the word, it's fine and dandy with some people until they are upset with that person and then they use the word. Now you're upset. My point is from the jump, don't allow someone to call you something that later on you're going to look at or perceive as being racist when you tolerated this kind of stuff all along. Don't all of a sudden get a gumption to say enough is enough. Don't use the word again. You opened up an avenue. You gave them a lane in order to use this word. And I just found it interesting in the article I was reading by Richard Pryor's daughter, where she was saying that in society, we use this word all the time. And it's been said before by many people, it's terms of endearment when you're talking about a black person talking to another black person. And most of the time, even if it is confrontational when it's being said, they know that it's not a put down, because how can you put down someone who is the same skin color as you? However, when someone else uses it, they use it in a manner that makes you feel inferior. And that's the main issue. So don't allow that in the first place, and then it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And then, like, also, I mean, there are, like, like a lot of times that we as black people, like, use it amongst each other, and we do use it with the intent to put somebody down.
Right.
When we put, like, words like, dumb or stupid in front of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's pretty much a put down. It's pretty much an insult. And it like, harkens back to those Jim Crow days, and like, harkens back to the damn shadow slavery and the like human trafficking and all of those things, of that nature and stuff. Because I've seen and witnessed people, like, use that word very, very angrily plenty of times.
Mm-hmm.
When they want to, like, put that sting on it, want to put that stink on it, that stench, and to make it something horrible, and it's again, like, it goes back to, like, lack of vocabulary. It goes back to, like, once again, normalizing things and the way, and like, how do you see yourself? How do you see your people? How do you value your life, your people life, your race, human life? Mm-hmm. What are your values? And our value systems are so jacked up, and it's been jacked up for like long time. And we need to get it straightened out a lot quicker than later. So yeah, but I agree with what you had to say. I mean, it's a way. It's like it's the whole intent of it. And like, and like a lot of people outside of the race, outside of the culture, they use it for fun.
Right.
Fun
Exactly. Exactly.
It's mockery.
Exactly.
It's mockery and stuff. I mean, they look at it as something cool. And it's something fun and funny to be said with them. But when you like use different racial stereotypes and language and something like that, like, what I'm saying, all the slurs against, like, like Spanish speaking folks and Europeans and things like that, it's big offensive. You know what I'm saying? If you use certain kind of Jewish slangs against Jewish people, I mean, they ready to shut down the whole country. So until like black people get on that level where they're gonna treat it as such, I mean, other groups are gonna do what they do with it.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, to sum it up is to say that, look, if you don't want someone, using that word towards you derogatorily, then don't ever say it. Don't ever use it in any kind of conversation, because there's always going to be some pushback that you don't necessarily want. Another topic I wanted to talk about, Mark, was the passing of the legendary Peabo Bryson. I know a lot of people will say Peabo who, if you're not of Black American descent, because anybody that's Black knows Peabo Bryson. But the write-up on him I didn't like, because they basically said, okay, he did known for his Oscar-winning Disney films and duets, Beauty and the Beast with Celine Dion, and it has to be like this big thing where that's the biggest thing he did in his career. Like, he did nothing before that. I mean, all of these songs that you listen to, if you go listen to Peabo Bryson and the catalog of songs, Can You Stop the Rain? I mean, I'm So Into You, Feel the Fire. All of those songs were classics even before he did any of that, not to mention his arranging of songs, his writing of songs for other major artists as well. I just don't like it. At 75 years old, he had a storied career and he was still performing. It just, unfortunately, he had that stroke and it hit him hard and it took him away. But I mean, he's a legendary R&B performer. He's at the top of the list with the Luther Vandrosses, right? He's right there. I mean, so his life should be celebrated, no question about it. I didn't like the write-up about him, because it seemed like he did, Beauty and the Beast, and he did A Whole New World, for Aladdin, excuse me. And they acted like that was the only thing he ever did that, meant anything to anyone. And I just didn't like that. So that's why I was just speaking out on it.
Well, yeah, because I mean, that's true. I mean, that's how they feel. I mean, once again, you gotta look at the publication, the sources, where you choose, or where people choose to, like, get these information from, like social media platforms or whatever and stuff, Twitter, TikTok, whatever and stuff. They're gonna put like Aladdin stuff and the cartoon things, and because that's how they chosen to have him known by.
Right, right.
We can sit there and like name a whole lot of successful Black people that, like, like the mainstream society only know them for, like, one or two things, and so they ain't gonna go all deep into, like, everything that he had done, because they don't have the intentions of doing that. That's not what they are about. Yeah,
it's just like Keith David just got his star on the Walk of Fame. Why did it take Keith David this long to get this? All the roles that he's played in, but you know why? Because he played in Black movies, what they consider Black movies, and Black movies aren't considered to be serious movies.
The question is, how much of the white validation do we need?
Exactly.
To make us feel that we somebody, to make us feel that our people have achieved something. And that's the problem with society as a whole, is that white validation. We need that Oscar award. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, if you get like a little BET award, that ain't nothing.
That ain't nothing.
You need to get that. You need to get that MTV Spaceman statue, or whatever the case is.
Right.
I mean, we have to learn to stop letting everybody else define who we are.
You're right.
To the ones that know, they gonna know, and it's up to us as a community
to celebrate that.
Our legends alive.
Yeah, and celebrate them. You're right, because
we gotta celebrate our own.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, because they're not. And when you pass on from this world, they give you a small write-up about something that's small and insignificant to the black community, because him doing those things, while they were great, they were two great songs. In the black community, we're like, what? I mean, Peabo Bryson did much more than that. The same way with Keith David, the same way with Samuel L. Jackson. These people have done much more than what you give them credit for. And that's what I get mad at, the disrespect.
And there's disrespect. And once again, we normalize it and we allow that disrespect. I mean, like I said, we're not talking about Bryson like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying unless you pretty much somebody from pretty much like the age, I say 40 and up. Oh, you know about his career. You know about those songs back in the day. I mean, we just don't do it in modern society, because we don't have the attention span, which is another thing.
Yeah.
We're too distracted about other things that's going on. I said we're more focused on about here and now. We're more focused on Drake new album and who. Like I said, who he talking about in his album,
right?
And all these frivolous things that means nothing for us. That's not going to help us grow. That's not going to do anything from us but cheap entertainment. And that's the problem. Unless and we gotta look for the New York Times or these big white media publications to say anything about it. We're not going to get that much attention to let's say a Roland Martin, that's a black-owned media program and stuff that would spend pretty much a whole hour and a half talk about the history and the legacy, and bring in people who still around that had worked with this that had worked with him and performed with him and all those kind of things like that. Because you're not going to see that on any of these major media news outlets and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like I said, it's pretty much on us to keep that man. We don't need them. I mean, frankly, we don't need the white man to sit there and tell us how great he was. I mean, because we know it within ourselves, and we choose to want to know it. That's the thing. We got to start again, celebrating ourselves, celebrating our people. You know what I'm saying? We got to have, we got to bring that up at the cookout.
Yeah.
And we got to stop trying to invite outsiders into the cookout.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yep. Well, it's one of those things I wanted to talk about, because I was just kind of mad because Peabo Bryson meant more than just those two things. He was a legend.
Yeah, he was a legend.
He meant more than that, and I wanted to speak about him on the Grown Man Podcast because I felt that it was important, and that's why I did it.
Rest in power.
Yes, sir. Another topic I wanted to talk about, Mark, is should the Chicago Bears, named the Chicago Bears right now, retain the name Chicago Bears when they move to Hammond, Indiana? Because it appears that that's where they're heading. There's been a lot of speculation about Arlington Heights. They even talked about them possibly staying here in Chicago. Now it looks like the arrows are pointing toward Hammond, Indiana. My question to you, I have my opinion, but my question to you, should they have the right to retain the name Chicago, or should they be called the Hammond, Indiana Bears, if that's one they want to be called, or Gary, or whatever?
They should be the Gary Bears or the Hammond. If you're not gonna play in Chicago, you shouldn't have the name Chicago.
Exactly.
The reality of it is, it's I don't know if it's gonna get to litigation and all that kind of stuff. Of course, it might. If people if the city sue for the rights to have the name Chicago, because they're gonna look at it it's the decision has to be up to the owners of the organization, and surely they're gonna want to keep the name Chicago Bears, because that's who they've been from like from pretty much the beginning of time, or from the beginning of the game, football being played. Once it was established as a football team. I mean, that's the team that everybody's gonna recognize and identify. Chicago Bears, the Bears. Anytime people say the Bears, you think of Chicago. I mean, that's just the way it is. But yeah, I mean, they sit there and leave the city if they do go. I mean, because I know it's still not set in stone yet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, all like indications are like, yeah, they're gonna be moving on out of it. And like, yeah, if it was up to me, I'd be like, yeah, okay, you can leave, but you're gonna leave that name.
Exactly.
You represent the city that you're gonna play for.
Exactly, and that's my whole deal. And I know it's done in New York. We talked about it offline. We know that the New York Giants and the New York Jets technically play in New Jersey, but they're still called New York. Of course, the Jets for a while were called the New Jersey Jets. So it's one of these situations for me. I think they should not be able to use the name. And once again, you know how it is in the city of Chicago. Speculation points once again, and blame will point at Mayor Brandon Johnson, who said that the Bears were still talking to him. And the Bears admitted to the fact that they were when they lied, when they said they didn't talk to the mayor. The mayor wanted basically some of the same kind of assurances and deals that the fans up in Green Bay, Wisconsin get, and it's the fact they own their team. So this is the point. Brandon Johnson say, hey, you guys can build the stadium on the land, but you don't own the land. You own the rights for the land. And, once again, the taxpayers were going to, see some reduction in our taxes, which was important to me as a person who's a homeowner in the city of Chicago. Our property taxes are already high. Why should a $1 billion franchise be able to, we can't build a stadium. We need tax breaks in order to build a stadium. Oh, poor Chicago Bears. They don't own other businesses like everybody else. So they need help. Tough. I don't care what they do. Go over to Indiana. Didn't make a difference to me. I wasn't going over to Soldier Field, and I'm damn sure not going to Hammond, Indiana to watch them play. But I'm glad if they have to leave, so what? It won't matter to me. It's what we talked about earlier about the NFL. I don't particularly care for it anyway, because once again, it's an 80-some% league and the head coaches are like 90-some% white. So it's one of those things where I could care less, but I know they're going to lay the blame, as politicians are already saying. The ones in Illinois, the Republicans especially, are saying, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, they're letting them leave. No. The whole point is everybody's property taxes will go up in the state of Illinois. So you mean to tell me people that are down in Mound City, Illinois, or Carbondale want to pay higher taxes for a team that is 300 and some miles away from you? Give me a break. So the Republicans in the state of Illinois, they can stick it with that argument. They're just trying to save face because they know they have a felon at the top of their ticket in the White House. So it's one of them situations where I have absolutely no sympathy. Hey, goodbye, so long. We won't miss you at all. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, when it comes to politics, it's all fair game. I mean, that's where they look at it. I mean, politics is a cutthroat sport. And I mean, it's like nothing personal. It's only business. And yes, they're going to use this against Mayor Johnson. I mean, and, that's what they're going to do. I mean, but once again, I mean, the people have that decision to be made. And unfortunately, the reason why Mayor Johnson, was trying to get involved in this whole thing and trying to see if he can, negotiate or work something out, because unfortunately he knows how important the Chicago Bears is to Chicagoans.
Right.
I mean, that's just whole reality of the situation, unfortunately, because a lot of them still don't see the bigger picture, and everybody loves their football, and everybody want the Bears to represent Chicago and all the things. I mean, it just goes back to what we pretty much been saying in many segments before, and all that is like our value systems is all messed up. It's all out of whack. I mean, I like the idea of Chicago being, Chicago Bears being and playing in Chicago and giving them a new stadium, if it means that like the residents of the stadium is going to benefit.
Exactly.
The residents of Chicago are going to benefit from it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
If we get something off of that, as it should be.
Yes.
But that's not going to happen. It doesn't appear. It still might, but it's probably not. But once again, we sit there and value. We put so much stake and stock in a football team and the organization. Meanwhile, you got a whole lot of people homeless in Chicago.
Exactly.
A whole lot of people struggling in Chicago, and a whole lot of other things that should be focused on to make the city better and stronger than what it is. It is a strong city. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of beautiful parts of the city, and you got a lot of great businesses in Chicago that's doing well and all that. But it's still there's still more important work to focus on to that nature than just a football team.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I'm gonna give my final take on it is that look. We've seen this before with other cities. Like you take the Rams, right? Remember when the Rams were in LA and then they moved to St. Louis and they got St. Louis to build them a whole new stadium? Where did they go back to? They went back to LA. So now St. Louis has a stadium that they can't do anything with because they don't have a team. That's the whole point. Who's to say that whoever owns the Bears next, when the McCaskies decide that they're too old and they can't run this team anymore, who's to say that it doesn't go in the hands of someone else when they sell it and they say, you know what? I don't like this stadium. We're going to move somewhere else. And then we're stuck with a $20 billion stadium that we can't do anything with. That's my whole point about that. With Soldier Field, when the Bears get out of it, there's a lot of plans to renovate and do different things over there to Soldier Field and make it somewhere where people would be proud to go. But see, once again, the people who go to Bears game, they don't care about that because they come from the suburbs and the majority of them are what? They're not black. So my whole point about this is those are the ones who are going to make the biggest fuss is the people who live in the suburbs who like to come on the lakefront, but they don't like the city to look like anything in the neighborhoods. But they want that big, bright football stadium, but people can be broke and starving and homeless and illiterate, and they could care less about these things. Well, I care about them. Goodbye, Bears. If it means kids being more educated, absolutely goodbye, Bears, because I can do without that.
Oh, yes, I completely agree. And that's the whole thing. We got to get our priorities straightened out. And we're going to have to get it, one way or the other way. Like I said, I prefer doing it the more, diplomatic, educational way and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to the hard way. And the hard way is pretty much having everything taken away from us and resources and things like that. If you keep on making emotional decisions about who you want to have be your elected officials, and I said it before, I say it again, politicians aren't meant to be your friends,
right,
or your role models or your heroes,
right,
none of that.
Right.
Personally, I like Brandon Johnson. I never met the man, but I like the way he talks and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not gonna sit there want to support him just based off of how good he talks. You want to support him about the things that he's doing and the resources he's bringing to the city,
right,
to the communities and all of that kind of stuff. He's making sure people are safe and all that kind of thing like that, doing the best he can. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what you want out your elected official. You're going to, use this as another reason to, get rid of him as mayor. That's going to be on y'all to make that dumb decision and stuff, especially if you don't have anybody that's going to provide for the city better than he's doing.
Absolutely. You're 100% right, Mark. Nothing really else needs to be said about this topic because we've talked about it in exhaustion and we've discussed this online and offline. I've discussed it with people and I'm quite sure you have. The Bears have their right to go and take their franchise anywhere they want to. However, I believe that there should be some kind of legality that prevents them from saying we are the Chicago Bears when they do not play in the city of Chicago?
Oh, people gonna fight it. They're gonna come out.
Oh yeah, they should. Last topic.
Get mad, they're gonna come out.
Last topic I want to talk about, Mark, is something I had on my mind because once again it comes up and it always comes up, and that is the history of Black Americans and law enforcement. So, it's a lot of things we've been talking about during this podcast that falls right in line with some of this stuff. And, I know you've had personal experiences, and I have as well, and we've talked to other people. And, from the outside looking in, a lot of other ethnicities and races sometimes find it hard to understand the dynamic between Black Americans and law enforcement. And they say, like you said before, if somebody would stop running, they wouldn't have got shot. Or, if they wasn't doing this, they wouldn't have got killed. If they was doing this, they would have, this wouldn't have happened. But what do you say about this situation?
I say you look at history. You read history. Law enforcement started in the damn slavery days when you had those slave catchers. That was law enforcement. When somebody property decided that they didn't want to be a slave anymore and they ran away, they had to go and retrieve that property.
Exactly.
Those slave catchers. Paddle waggers and all that kind of stuff that you call them all kind of names. Now we call them 12.
Right.
We used to call them 5-0 if you lived on the West Coast and all kind of things and stuff. I mean, they have always been designed to keep Black people in place. Bottom line, full stop. I mean, that's just how it always been. You don't got to go too deep into history to get that perspective, but you should. But that's the whole thing. So that's why our history with law enforcement, why any Black person who's driving down the road would get a little bit nervous or get a little bit more aware or more alert when they see a police car behind them, wondering is this MF are gonna pull me over or whatever, or you want to make sure that you driving the right speed and all this kind of stuff. I mean, because you never know. I mean, it's always been a check on Black movement. So that's what it's all about. And then people like we spoke about in previous segments, they want to sit there you should be in compliance. You should be this. You should be that. I mean, and it's all nonsense. Like nobody should have to sit there and be harassed or be followed in what's supposed to be a free country. But the truth of the matter is, it's never been free for anybody that looks like you and me. Right,
absolutely. You're 100% right, Mark, because that's the whole thing that I like to talk about when we speak on these issues is that, people that's not Black don't understand what it's like to be Black and being stopped by law enforcement or being questioned by law enforcement, because we've seen several times where people that weren't Black, and mostly they were white, they were questioned by law enforcement and they berated law enforcement and they were allowed to go on their way. But
let me say this real quick, not to cut you off, but here's the problem. It's fine that people don't know how it feels to be Black, because how could they if they not Black and they haven't had the experience? The big problem is when they have the damn arrogance to pretend that they know better, that they right about something that they don't understand because they not that person. I can't tell you about your life if I'm not walking in your shoes. So what gives you the right to sit there and be like, oh, well, you should have did this, or they shouldn't have did that, or George Floyd, he shouldn't have swallowed all that dope, that's why he died. All that stuff is stupid. You got the arrogance to sit there and pretend that you know better, and that's the problem with whiteness. They always think that they know better when they don't.
Well, my thing about it, Mark, is when it comes to us, for whatever the reason, they're always confrontational. And as I've said this previously before, anything that comes out of a Black man's mouth is considered a lie until it's been verified by a white person. So if I tell you something, you're not going to believe it. You're going to say, oh, everybody says that. Prime example of that, I was stopped before, had a missing license plate. License plate was missing because it was stolen. Filed a police report and was going to the DMV to pick up new plates. Officer pulls me over. He says, hey, you don't have a license plate. I said, yeah, I'm going to the DMV right now because someone stole my license plate. Oh, everybody says that. That was the first thing he said out of his mouth, being very condescending to me when I was very nice. And that's the thing. People always get this perception that black people are already the angry black man. They always aggressive. No, I was very nice when I said what I said. And yet he still spoke to me in a manner that I felt was beneath me. He spoke to me as if what I was saying was a lie as soon as it came out of my mouth. And then when he went to check on it and saw that it was true, oh, yeah, it's right here. You can be on your way. Basically, it's not like, okay, I have any apology for what I just said. The aggressiveness and the tone in which I took. He didn't apologize for any of that. He went on his way. And that's the kind of treatment that we receive all the time. And that's what I'm talking about. It's disrespectful for them to treat us that way. And other people don't say it like you said earlier because they're not in our skin, so they don't know how we feel.
I mean, it's a broken system all the way. I mean, like I said, not just with law enforcement, it's in many places of employment.
Yes.
You have a supervisor or a lead or like a manager or whatever and stuff that feels that they know best all the time. I mean, like I said, you can be the smartest person in the world and stuff, and they need to have that verified.
Yeah.
And oftentimes or not, when it is verified, like I said, they get mad at you for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, with the law enforcement, with the police and stuff, it's like it's the whole institution is broken. The whole institution needs to be rebuilt. So that's where, when people were saying, defund the police, that's what they pretty much meant. It was to rebuild the whole structure of it.
Exactly.
And all of that.
Exactly.
Most people run with it.
Yeah.
You just want lawlessness.
Yeah.
And
No.
It's the system is broken.
Exactly.
And it's not gonna get any better until you proactively, engage in redoing the system. And that's one thing former President Joe Biden was good with under Kristen Clark, I believe. That was the assistant attorney general.
Right.
Under the Biden administration,
right.
The Biden-Harris administration, if you will.
Right.
Got to give the black woman some credit in there. I mean, but the whole point is that under Kristen Clark, we did start to see, police apartments being investigated. And I can't think of the states off the top of my head, but it was like a lot of those southern towns where the police department had to clean their whole act up.
Right.
Because of Kristen Clark. And things like that. And that was some of the failures of the Biden administration not to highlight that enough. Because the reason why they couldn't highlight it because they didn't want to offend white America.
Right.
They ain't gonna make it so white. I said white America to feel some kind of way about it when in actuality they was doing the right thing by trying to change the system from within. You have to chop off the head of the poisonous snake. You can't chop the tail off because that tail is going to grow back.
Mm-hmm.
You got to chop the head off, and you got to you have to redo the whole machine, the whole operation. I mean, that's the only way it's going to work. So, yes, black people have a bad history with police officers. Then you have some black folks and stuff like that. It's like, oh, man, I never experienced that. Because I come across a lot of, suburban blacks who never, had those experiences because they was fortunate enough to, grow up in a decent neighborhood. And maybe, as I said, maybe around a whole lot of decent white folks and things of that nature and stuff. And that's all fine and dandy. But when you get outside that box, you're going to see reality go check you real quick on that one.
Yep.
I mean, because that's the whole reality of the situation and stuff, man. You cannot train people not to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. So so what's the other thing that you can do? You can sit there and hit them in the pocketbook.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing, man. As long as you got qualified immunity out here, which we was trying to, stop in Biden's administration when they had the John Lewis bill to eliminate qualified immunity, meaning that police officers just can't shoot people all willy-nilly,
right,
and not pay or not suffer any kind of consequences.
Right.
And when they do suffer consequences, it takes a long time. It takes a year in court and investigations and all that. Look how long that the George Floyd thing took.
Yeah, and
look how long it took, and you had to bring in all these specialists and these doctors and all of that. I mean, to convict Chauvin of something that was plainly caught on camera. It was ridiculous to me.
If the shoe was on the other foot and Floyd would have shot Chauvin, it would have been quick and easy trial. Case closed, nothing to see here. But like you said, they had to jump through hoops. They brought out experts. They did this, they did that. All of this dog and pony show for what? This man murdered this man, plain and simple.
And think about the cost of that. Think about how much all those resources that was taken away from the community and people in the state of Minnesota. They had to pay for all of that stuff. When you go out there and do these investigations and go and get these expert doctors and these witnesses and all that costs money. All that costs the state money. When the Floyd family, sued and stuff like that, that money came from the state, which means it came from the people, the people that pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. That should be coming from the police budget. That should be coming out the damn police organizations and all of that stuff.
I agree.
That's not happening.
I agree 100%.
Anytime they sit there and do wrong, get caught on it, it come out of our end.
I agree with it 100%. I believe that if they had to pay for their sins, they would be more or less likely to commit those sins of murder, because there would be some real serious financial blowback. But if the worst thing happens to you is you lose your job, you can easily go to another place and get another job in law enforcement.
Right. Or you can be a bouncer or like private security and all kind of things.
Right.
And let me just say this real quick. When a doctor makes a mistake and doing surgery or whatever like that, and it costs somebody their life, they lose their career, they can end up going to jail. All of those things.
And they get sued for malpractice. The same thing should happen to police.
All that.
Because every job like that, when you're dealing with people, should be taken seriously, right? Every job.
Absolutely.
I've said this before, every job. And I was talking to someone about this week. I'm like, man, everywhere you go, wherever you work and whatever you do, these things should be taken seriously. If you take your job serious all the time, there'll be less accidents. But a lot of people don't. But especially in being a doctor, as you said, and law enforcement, which is what we're talking about, there should be consequences for bad behavior. No one should get off from murdering anyone because you took a life. That's something you cannot give back.
That's the bottom line. Like I said, I don't care how racist you are. You can be racist all day. But when you sit there and take the role of law enforcement and stuff, it should be a duty, serve and protect, which is what they say. I mean, that should be a priority. And until it's coming out they pension, out they wallets and things like that, they're not going to change. Like you just said, they just go somewhere else. They can go to another state. They can become private security. They can do a whole lot of things. But
but the most
people out there that's holding moments of silence for killer cops. So
there you go. This is the society that we live in, unfortunately. Well, folks, we went a long time because we had a lot to talk about. The Big 100 show is in the books. We talked about a lot of different things, a lot of different topics. Always head over to WeRiseNation.com. You can hear the podcast at Search from the Podcast and other podcasts as well. Short videos over on the YouTube channel, Grown Men Podcast. A lot of different action always happening at the We Rise Nation Network as we continue to build the building blocks for the Grown Men Podcast and the We Rise Nation Network. Of course, we're all over it. We give our opinions and our takes about what's going on in the world and in our communities. Mark, it was great to have you back here on the Grown Men Podcast to give your take on these hot button issues.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's always a pleasure, and we're gonna keep on rolling. And we hoping that more people, like I said, who want to seek, you know what I'm saying, truth, who want to speak truth to power, who wants to, like, you know what I'm saying, hear things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Y'all can go ahead and come over here. WeRiseNation.com. Support us. Support the podcast. Support all the ventures that we're doing.
Oh, yeah, you said it all, Mark. So for my brother, the Mark, I am your host, BAN, and we will talk to you soon.
Where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We about to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud.